This week's podcast is sponsored by Dr. Shalia Lewis and the Word Christian Fellowship, where Pastor Keith Jones is the senior pastor. The Word Christian Fellowship is located at 2640 Santa Fe Avenue in the city of Long Beach, and Sunday morning worship services are at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. And if you are looking for a loving church to visit in the city of Long Beach, feel free to visit the Word Christian Fellowship, where the Word of God is delivered to help people develop a personal relationship with God. Blessings and thank you to Dr. Shalia Lewis and the Word Christian Fellowship and Pastor Keith Jones. Hello everyone, my name is Tamla Devon and I'm with Help Me to Help, and I am here with the wonderful Dr. Randall Maxey. He's an MD, PhD in the city of Inglewood, and he specializes in internal medicine. I hope I got that right, Dr. Maxey, right?
Yes,
internal medicine, nephrology, and regenerative medicine. And so, Dr. Maxey, thank you for joining us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, you're here with me today because we are trying to get as many people as possible to be as healthy as possible, especially in the African American community. Far too many of us are dying from diseases that can be prevented and or reversed. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct.
Well, that's why we're doing this. And so today I want to talk with you actually about renal disease, chronic kidney disease, end-stage renal disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. So we just want to touch off and touch or tackle some of these issues and just get our listening and watching audience informed about things they can do. So I thank you again for joining us. Okay, Dr. Maxey?
It's actually my pleasure.
Awesome.
I'm excited about speaking to you about these issues. They're very close to my heart. And it just occurred to me in thought that one of the first and best things I can tell a patient when I meet them to set the tone is to give an affirmation of life and health and speak that into the universe.
Awesome.
This is a day that the Lord has created, and I'm going to rejoice in it. And I'm going to look at my health in that light, and that is more important than a lot of people think.
It is more important. Yes, we have to give positive affirmations because what we speak out to the atmosphere, we can manifest.
Yes.
That's right. Well, I was taking some statistical looks at what's happening with the African American community when it comes to chronic kidney disease. And my research, or what I found, is that about 15% of the U.S. adults, which is about 37 million people, are estimated to have chronic kidney disease.
You're right. And if I can give you the statistics that I know are there. African Americans make up approximately 13% of the U.S. population.
Right.
Of that number, we make up more than 50% of the 600,000 or so people in the U.S. that have end-stage renal disease.
Wow.
End-stage renal disease being defined as those people who either need dialysis or renal replacement therapy or have to have a transplantation of their kidney. And that is also known as stage 5 kidney disease, end-stage renal disease, meaning that there is no cure for that.
Okay.
But there are 5 stages of renal disease, chronic kidney disease, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 may be asymptomatic. You don't know you have it.
Right.
2 may still be mostly asymptomatic. And 3 starts to become symptomatic with abnormal urine, getting up at night, all nocturia. And then stage 4, which leads right into dialysis. But the key number is that we make up 13% of the population, but more than 50% of those requiring dialysis or transplantation. In other words, the kidney is somewhat the Achilles heel of the African American. And recently, in terms of several years ago, the University of Haifa in Israel did find out that there were two genes associated strictly with African Americans, APO1 and APO2, that lead to an increased degree of end-stage renal disease in African Americans. Okay. And that's something that is good that we found it, but tragic that it's there. Right. And then you add on top of it the environmental factors that heavily tilt renal disease in the way of blacks. That makes it even worse.
Now, there are also other races that carry this APO. No.
Primarily those that are black. Now, what is black? We know that there is no such thing as race. Right. Race is a political, social determination. But it's useful in this case that we consider African American those. They used to say anybody that had a drop of black blood is African American. But we know African American come in all sizes, colors, and shapes. You can look as white as a Nordic person, black as an original African. But it is those of us who make up that diaspora of those who are descended from slaves that were brought here that are most at risk, and those are the people I'm defining as African Americans.
Okay.
Now, there's no real scientific way to decide what percentage you are of what. So we're speaking politically and health-wise, if not medically.
Okay. And so what are some of the other people that may be affected by this and don't even know it?
Well, the biggest cause of kidney disease is diabetes. And the groups that are at severe risk for that are people of Latin or Hispanic descent, not necessarily a Castilian group, which are basically European, but more those who are mestizo. And those genes actually come through Asia, to China, from those who millions of years ago walked across the land bridge into what is now Alaska and down the coast of California into South America. And those are the ancestors of our Native Americans that we call Indians, and our Mexicans, Aztecs, Mayans, etc. They're at risk, more risk than the general population, but still not at risk to the same degree that African Americans are. And then we had those Africans who were brought over on the Middle Passage from mostly West Africa. And on that Middle Passage, where there was a lack of water, lack of food, and those who had the genes that allowed them to hold on to salt, hold on to water, they made it. Okay. The ones who did not have those genes died on the Middle Passage. So therefore, those who were deposited and therefore lived and were healthy enough to come across here became most of our ancestors in South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, etc. And while these Africans were toiling, picking cotton, planting sugarcane, that was all good because they exercised off those calories. But when they became modern couch potatoes and still had those genes that hold on to salt and water, that became deadly and morphed into high blood pressure, some of the metabolic diseases. We call something the thrifty gene theory. When people work hard, you don't get diabetes. You don't get the hypertension all the time. But now that we've gotten modern, eating all this sugar, eating all this salt, and basically going to work and looking at TV at night, right, that's what put us at risk. So what was the strength when you were a slave on the slave ship is not your strength in modern days.
I understand. So it also shows that most or 9 out of 10 adults with kidney disease, they don't even know they have it.
Well, we call high blood pressure the silent killer.
Yes.
And it doesn't hurt. You don't get dizzy. And by the time you start having symptoms, then you're probably pretty far along. Now, some people say, I can know when I'm under stress. I can know when my blood pressure is up. Not usually so.
Right. It's a silent killer.
It's a silent killer. So that's something we have to look out for. So I do recommend that people who have a family history of hypertension, people who are African American, should periodically check their blood pressure. And in almost every drugstore, you can go in and put your arm in a cuff and they'll take your blood pressure.
Right.
Or you can buy it for a very low price, one of those blood pressure cuffs that's on your wrist. Push the button, it'll read your it'll read your blood pressure.
Yeah.
And you know. And we do want that blood pressure to be 120/80. And I've seen a lot of patients seen by doctors not of their culture who say it's okay if your blood pressure is 180/110.
No
And
way.
that's not true. They do say that.
Okay. So we need to watch our numbers and we need to keep them in the normal range,
Right.
which is 120/80.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So what are some of the major health risk factors for kidney disease?
Well, let me back that up a little bit.
Okay.
There are some risk factors for disease in particular. And the diseases that lead to kidney disease usually are diabetes and hypertension.
Yes.
So I would include that in the commission. So I believe that it would be much healthier if people were very cognizant of not eating a lot of things that lead to high sugar, such as simple carbohydrates with much sugars, salt that causes high blood pressure, smoking that causes vasoconstriction, which will elevate blood pressure. I have to admit, I have a problem. I drink coffee, and that coffee can also raise your blood pressure. So those things are very concerning to me when a person has that tendency and doesn't recognize that those dietary indiscretions, lifestyle indiscretion. Obesity. When a person is obese, you may be fat and jolly, but obesity leads to more than 50 different toxins being metabolized and produced in your body, including tumor necrosis factor, angiotensin II, which raises blood pressure. You have a tendency to get more cancers, colon cancer, all kinds of cancers, high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney disease, when you're obese. So there's no such thing as fat and healthy. It is not true, cannot be done.
Well, in America, they try to change it because so many people are overweight that they're now pushing that thick is in.
Yeah, it may be socially on TV, but that will kill you. And especially now, there are two types of obese people. There's obesity shaped like an apple, where you're obese around the waist. That's deadly. And then there's a pear shape that some women have, where they're narrow on the top and have a big span around their hips and butt. And that's less cardiovascular risk in that way. But in general, you should keep that fat up. We tend to measure something called BMI, basal. We measure your height to weight ratio. And now that too has to be done differently for African Americans. We don't want them, we're not built like Twiggy.
Right.
Okay, we have a different set of bones. Our bones are more dense. They weigh more. And half the guys are 100% of the guys in the NFL would be considered morbidly obese.
Right.
They're not. They're just big. And we have to take that into account. So, yes, we do have bigger bones, to put some in the southern term in there.
Right. So, what are some of the environmental factors or lifestyle factors that put African Americans at risk for kidney disease?
One of the biggest ones is high blood pressure and diabetes. And diabetes, we know, can be greatly affected by dietary indiscretion. And I advise people watch out for processed food, eat your colors, look at the labels, see how much sugar is in it, how much salt is in it, how much calorie per serving. If you're doing that, it's better and cheaper in the long run to eat organic food than it is the non-organic food. You want to stay away from chicken and beef and even seafood with hormones and pesticides in it.
Right.
So you got to take care of what you put in your body, because it will have an effect. And if you understand, God gave you a body that is in effect a machine, that makes energy that takes from the sun. And, my son, God love him, doesn't put oil in the car all the time. If you don't put the right kind of oil in the car, it's not going to run right.
Right.
So those are some of the factors. There's also the emotional and mental factor.
Okay.
And that there's something called eustress, which means there's no stress or normal stress, and then there's distress and high stress. And you cannot measure it by how you feel. But stress is how you react to your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that African Americans start off behind the eight ball in that with 400 years of slavery. With the fact that even now in 2020 that we face a higher uphill battle. I'm a physician with 2 doctorate degrees, but I have to work harder, present myself better than many white physicians who are much less qualified than me. So when you get up and know that the deck is potentially stacked against you because of racism, that generates an unspoken stress in you. And that can ultimately lead to high blood pressure. It can make your diabetes get out of control easier. There are certain hormones that you produce that make that tendency. So there are psychological factors.
Right.
In addition, it's been shown, even with animals, that the nurturing that you get as a child is very important. Now, I like to say there's no reason for you to be a crook or a gangster, but there are some factors that say you may have that tendency if you didn't get the nurturing that all mammalian and even non-mammalian species on Earth were supposed to have. It's very important. Now, let me just take that to a different level. The way we have agriculture and animals, husbandry, chickens that are in cages that can't move, cows that can't move, just put there to get food and give milk and in a little bitty stall. What kind of poison hormones are they making and putting in that meat and that milk and that chicken and those eggs? It has an effect. And then we're eating those and we wonder why we got guns, people shooting up 100 people a day and all that. It has an effect.
Yes.
It has an effect.
Yes, and we really need to pay attention to what we're eating.
Yes, we do.
Yes, I know that we had talked earlier and we were talking about a plant-based diet.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm basically a former carnivore, former cannibal. And I started, my church went on this thing called the Daniel fast. And I tried it. Now, I wasn't ready for it. So I said, I'm going to eat just fish. I'm going to cut out the meat because I love meat. And I started that back in January. And most of my family is plant-based except for me.
Okay.
And I started liking it. So I haven't eaten any meat since January. And do I feel better? I do.
Awesome.
I feel better. I'm not perfect. And maybe one day I won't even eat fish. But right, I'm done. But I do think a plant-based diet has been shown that people are generally healthier and happier, don't have some of the challenges that those who eat, a lot of meat. Now, not to be restrictive on people, so you can eat meat every now and then, you can do that, but try to find organic, plant-fed meat, not farm-raised. If you're going to eat fish, it should be, wild caught and caught in the cold waters of the Atlantic. Better because of the type of fish oil that they produce.
Right.
That's much better. So I do believe that plantarians, if not vegans, do better in the long run.
Awesome. Well, getting back to diabetes here, so what are some of the main risks of diabetes on the body?
Well, diabetes, as you know, can affect every single organ in the body. Mm-hmm. But it's starting at the top. Diabetes can affect your eyes because diabetes is a disease of the blood vessels. And the back of your eyes are called your retina, made up of a web of blood vessels, and it can definitely cause blindness. And if you look at a diabetic eye, you can see bleeding, you can see spots of fat and things that can start what's called retinopathy. At the same time, you notice that in the diabetic is probably doing the same thing in the heart and in the kidneys. So you have an increased amount of kidney disease, glomerular failure, with those blood vessels being affected in the kidney.
Mm-hmm.
And the heart has a lot of blood vessels, and guess what? They can clog up, and you have an increased amount of cardiovascular disease and heart disease.
Right.
In addition, diabetics tend to get peripheral vascular disease and peripheral nerve disease. So they start to become numb and have tingling in their feet, numbness. And many times you can injure your feet, step on a nail, step on a tack, and not know it because you don't have feeling. That can fester into something that turns gangrenous, and you can lose a leg. The same with blood vessels there, which may work less. And when you lose circulation in the distant limb, that again can lead to gangrene and the problem with limb loss. We now have ways to approach it surgically by doing balloon dilatation of those lower extremity blood vessels to open those blood vessels out. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get them in the first place, you're much better off being on that plant-based diet, knowing what your cholesterol is, staying away from fatty food, fried foods, basically a lot of ethnic food, where good taste is defined as salty and or sweet. Or if it's really good, it's salty and sweet.
Salty and sweet, right. So some of the major changes that we need to make are lifestyle changes and dietary changes, correct?
And physical activity.
Right.
And almost everybody can walk. And if you can walk, you don't have to be a track star. But if you can walk 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week, that's good. Walking is one of the best exercises you can do. And I think it's even better than running, because when you run, that puts pressure on your joints, on your knee joints, etc. But walking is just fine. Swimming is even better, and it's cardio, it burns calories, so does walking. But getting that regular thing, that bed will kill you, the couch will kill you, that TV will kill you. Mm-hmm. So lifestyle changes are appropriate eating, appropriate exercise, and the affirmation and mental health are extremely important.
I know earlier we were talking about Uncle Arthur arthritis and medications that are being prescribed for people that suffer with that and the damage that that does on the body as well. Can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Yes. A lot of us who are becoming a little bit senior have what the old people call Uncle Arthur. And arthritis, there are 2 types of arthritis. There's rheumatoid arthritis, which is a disease of the immune system. And there's osteoarthritis, which is not immune, doesn't have an immune component. Some people have both, okay? And where, in that case, in some of your major joints, you tend to lose the function of your cartilage, and you can have some bone destruction, and it can lead to a painful walking ability or moving your joints. And in some cases, you can have tears and damage of the menisci in your knees or the ligaments around that. And some people get it more than others. It's especially bad in people who are overweight, because on your weight-bearing joints, if you got 250 pounds pounded on that knee, that's bad for you. And the same for your hips. Mm-hmm. And there are medications, mostly anti-inflammatory, medicines that have been used for years. Ibuprofen is one, plain old aspirin, Tylenol. And those medicines have their beneficial effect, but they also have negative effects on your kidney, on your heart, and even in some cases on your muscles. What we do in regenerative medicine, we know that an orthopedic surgeon can replace a knee or hip. That usually costs, $100,000+, and the general life of that artificial joint is about 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
Well, I can treat that same joint with regenerative medicine, which is stem cells and platelet-rich plasma, at maybe $5,000 or $10,000, as opposed to $100,000.
Well, we're definitely going to have to come back and talk about that.
And avoid surgery.
Medicine, yes, because
and it will last as long or longer than that artificial joint that's been put in.
So I know that the people are interested in hearing about that because a lot of people want to be off medication, especially with the side effects that they have. So we definitely are going to do another segment on that. But I just really wanted us to focus on the kidneys today because I'm being told that dialysis is growing at a rapid number. The need for people having the need for a kidney transplant or being on dialysis is really increasing.
Well, it is, and it's tragic in a sense because most of it is avoidable. And if we could find a way to teach, in fact, I want you to help me. We need to have a project where we can teach health awareness, how to avoid nephrology, catastrophes, meaning kidney disasters, heart disasters, and prevent some of this. And it's a matter of exposure.
Yes.
Our people are not dumb. They just don't know. And they do not attach the deed with the consequence.
That's right.
They think this will taste good, I'm going to eat this stuff, and they don't understand the consequence of life.
Right.
And dialysis, I'm a dialysis doctor. I have dialysis centers, and we make a fair amount of money on other people's misery and ignorance. So we have an obligation
Yes.
that we need to teach people to live the kind of lifestyle, treat themselves better, to mitigate the risk factors of kidney failure and heart failure
Yes.
and unnecessary misery.
It's so true. And that's one of the reasons why, we've started this Health to Health podcast because we want to educate as many people as possible. And I know we're getting ready to close out this segment, but what are just a few questions that we should be asking our doctors when we go for a visit?
Doctor, what are my risk factors? Give me at least 3 to 5 of my risk factors that I can work on. I want to target. Do I need to lose weight? How much? And when do I see you again? That's important. Doctor, you did prescribe me some medication. What are these medicines going to do? And is there any special medication I should be looking at because I'm African American? Is my high blood pressure the same as everybody else's? Are there some special concerns? What am I at risk for? And how are we going to talk about those? And can you help me?
Okay.
Doctor, is there a better way that I can eat? Can you tell me what type of diet I should eat? Should I have a DASH diet that's low in sodium? A diabetic diet that's low in carbohydrates and sugar? So direct me and let me follow your direction. You'll find that most doctors, if you talk to them, they will talk back to you. And most doctors are ethical and will do their best. And they much rather have a conversation with you than to have somebody that just sits there like a bump on the log and says, okay, doctor, whatever you say. Don't ever say that.
Right. We have to be our own advocate when it comes to our health.
Yes.
We have got to be the fighters. We've got to go into our doctor's office with a list of questions, and when we're prescribed something, we want to make sure that we're aware of how we're feeling so that we can even discuss that even more with our doctor upon our next visit. That's why follow-up visits are scheduled in the first place.
Yeah.
So you can tell the doctor the difference, that you're feeling, and you can have that conversation with them. And so, again, we've got to be our own advocate. We've got to fight for our own health. We've got to make lifestyle changes. We've got to get up and get active and eat the foods that are good for us. And so, Dr. Maxey, I thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to educate our people, and it's very important. And if people are looking for a doctor in this area, are you receiving new patients?
I am.
Thank you for listening in on our health podcast, and our goal is to help as many people as possible to be as healthy as possible. And so what I need from you is a letter in regards to your health or health concerns and issues, and you can email me at Tamla, and that's TAMLA helpmetohealth@gmail.com. And we look forward to you tuning in to more of our health podcasts on KJLH. And we thank KJLH for this opportunity and this forum. And so, Dr. Maxey, is there something that you'd like to share with our listening audience before we go?
Very much so. I'd very much like to put on a community event every month and call it a Health Expo, where we deal with health education. And I'd love very much for you to join me in making that happen. And the first one that I've got on the calendar is for September the 21st of this year. And we're going to have a Health Expo right in this parking lot. We'll have entertainment, we'll have food and education for all those who want it. And we'll talk about risk factors, lifestyle changes, and how to live longer and healthier. And I'm so glad you joined me on that.
All right, Dr. Maxey, that's awesome. Well, Dr. Maxey's address is 447 North Prairie Avenue, and that's in the city of Inglewood. And Dr. Maxey, what is your telephone number so that people can reach you?
The phone number is 310-680-1810. 310-680-1810.
Awesome. Well, we want you to share this information about our health podcast with your family and friends, co-workers, because our goal is to get as many people as healthy as possible. Again, thank you for listening and stay healthy.